Have you ever heard of Earthbound? Released in 1994, Earthbound quickly became a cult classic and one that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Blending an extremely unique aesthetic with its own quirky sense of humor, Earthbound really wasn't like anything that was released before it. Despite getting a sequel in 2006, I think it's fair to argue that there's never really been a game that's been able to capture the same type of magic that Earthbound did. That is, until Eastward. Beginning development in 2013 and finally releasing in 2021, Eastward is the first game from Shanghai-based indie studio Pixel. Starting development as a loose collection of ideas, the concept was eventually picked up by publisher Chucklefish, who have a fairly decent track record when it comes to indie games. Eastward has a lot of the same things that made Earthbound so magic. A unique aesthetic, its own quirky sense of humor, and some surprisingly dark and deep moments. I think it's fair to say that the developers definitely took inspiration from Earthbound. I mean, hell, even they admit it themselves. Eastward is a post-apocalyptic action-adventure game following John and Sam, a father-daughter duo that has to brave a beautiful post-apocalyptic world, fighting monsters and solving puzzles on the way. This game has quickly become one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, if this video's length didn't tell you that already, I don't know what to tell you. I absolutely adore everything about this game. From its art, to its music, to its gameplay, to its story, there really isn't any noticeably weak aspects of Eastward. Now, before I spend a large amount of your time talking about why I love this game so much in graphic detail, I'd like to issue a spoiler warning. If anything I've said about it so far has even remotely interested you, please play the game for yourself and come back after. The video will still be here when you're done. If you've already played the game or have no interest in playing it so far, then let me tell you why I love Eastward so much. Our story begins in Podcrock Isle, with John, a miner, and his adoptive daughter Sam. Podcrock Isle is an underground mining town where people aren't even allowed to mission the surface. Now, in this world, human culture on the surface was largely destroyed by a force called the miasma, forcing most of human society underground. The first thing you might notice in this game is the wonderful art based on the work of Hong Moran, who quit his stable job to work on this. The music accompanying it is composed by Joel Corlett, mainly known for his work on Death Stranding and being the main composer for the Halo Infinite soundtrack. Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli is also there, don't worry, he sells milk, that's totally normal. John, going into work for the day, finds out that he has to save people trapped in the mines. This is our first introduction to the game's combat system, which is relatively simple. You primarily just have to mash X through any enemy encounter, however, some require you to time your presses or use charge attacks. It's simple moveset, but it is very fun for what you get out of it. After John saves the miners from the monsters, Sam is forced to go to school the next day by the mayor, Mayor Hoffman, who is a certified dickhead. At this point, Sam goes to tell her friends that she can go to school the next day and finds them playing Earthborn, and this is the part of the video where I have to talk about Earthborn. Earthborn is a completely separate game inside the game. Think of it as a bonus product for free. It loosely ties into the story, but you can go the entire way without ever really interacting with it. How do I know that? Because that's what I did. Now, I love my turn-based RPGs, but I don't want to play an RPG when I'm getting into an action-adventure game, so I'll probably play it later or something. I don't know. You also are introduced to the cooking system, which can seem a little weird and obtuse at first, but is really a great addition. Basically, you have to combine 3 ingredients, mix them in a pan, and play a little slots minigame. I could never get the minigame right and get more than 2, but I'm bad at gambling. This allows you to essentially make your own health potions based on how many ingredients you have. The different types of ingredients you use and the different types of spices will also give you different buffs and different amounts of overheal. I think it's a very good system that adds a little more depth to a game that can admittedly be pretty simple mechanically. At this point, I'm going to restate my spoiler warning. If anything I've said about this game has interested you even remotely, please go play it first and then come back to this video. Now, something I should mention is the saving system in this game. Instead of calling your dad on the phone or talking to a frog in the car, you physically store your memories in a fridge. Each time you do this, the fridge gives you a weird little nihilist existential talk. It's fairly insignificant to the overall story, but just another example of how much love and care was put into crafting this game's world. Sam goes in for her first day of school and sees all the rich kids bullying a purple-haired kid named Daniel. Daniel's father left the village when he was very young, and he's been bullied his whole life because of it. This shows the definitive stigma around even considering leaving the outside world, as people that are even remotely related to those who left are immediately treated like this. Sam then has a hallucination and encounters a red doppelganger of herself, who tells her that one day she will venture to the surface and find out who she really is. Meanwhile, John is harvesting fruit from crabs. I don't know what the segment is. You're forced to do this, and you can only do it once. I don't know what this is about. Daniel, sick of being bullied at school, runs into the boiler tunnels behind the bathroom because the rich kids threw away his lucky coin, the one memory he has left of his dad. John and Sam, of course, run in to save him. After a short mini-dungeon, John and Sam return home for the day. The next day, John is allowed to come to school with Sam. Sam immediately picks a fight with the rich kids, claiming to know what the surface is like, describing it as a place with blue skies and green grass. The other kids, of course, make fun of her, so she runs off to the surface for herself to show that she isn't crazy. Running after her, John stumbles into the game's first real dungeon, the Underground Mall. It's a fairly simple dungeon that only has a few very light puzzles, focusing a lot on getting you more adjusted to the game's combat. It's perfectly competent, and all the art in this area is incredibly well done, giving you this real feel that you are in some place that used to be home to so many memories, but now stands as a testament to what was abandoned. At the end of the dungeon is the first boss fight in the game, against a robot called the Hand. And no, you smelly fucking weebs, it's not a JoJo reference.
No, unacceptable!
The Hand is a fairly simple boss, with you running away, breaking crates, before putting down bombs at the right time to make it vulnerable. To talk about the boss fights in this game, they are extremely hit or miss. Some of them are very good tests of skill that actually require you to know what you're doing and properly manage all your weapons, and others are just a check to see how many healing items you have. This will come up later in the video, but I feel this is the most hit or miss part of the game. After fighting the Hand, John is knocked out. Sam, unlocking her newfound psychic powers, has to save him. This is the first section where you're able to play as Sam. Sam cannot deal damage to enemies, having to stun them or use any other variety of psychic powers. Sam is just barely able to get John home, but immediately after he's recovered, Mayor Hoffman sends John and Sam to prison for daring to venture to the surface. Thrown into a tiny cell, John and Sam are introduced to Jasper. Jasper is a secondary character, being a one-man band, or one-man show as he puts it. He was thrown away for having dissenting opinions against the mayor, showing just what kind of government Podcrock Isle has. Sam's friends from school, now including Daniel, give Sam Daniel's lucky coin. Throwing it into the cell, it breaks a poster on the wall and leads to the next real dungeon. Now, this dungeon is relatively small. It introduces the concept of separating John and Sam to each do their respective puzzles. It's a fairly good introduction to this system before it gets really complex later on, and the combat flows smoothly into it. John eventually comes face to face with the Potcrab King, who is a fairly easy fight. I mean, I literally just head smashed against the valves for the entire time. I have no idea how to even damage him, and I was still able to get through it on my first try. The Potcrab King drops a lever, which John immediately slots into a slot right behind the poster. Flicking this lever, you see a train directional arrow switch from side to side. Just as John does this, Mayor Hoffman and his goons break in again, and John, Jasper, and Sam are all caught and sentenced to be exiled. Coming face to face with this massive gate made out of old technology, you learn how you are to be exiled. A train named Charon, which occasionally passes through the town, is to take you away. The townsfolk, of course, believe that this means certain death, as the outside world is completely inhospitable. There's a form of mock trial that is obviously rigged against the protagonists, and they are all sentenced to death. Boarding the train, the gang sees their home one last time. Speeding down the rails, it's revealed that the lever that John flicked ends up taking Charon a completely different direction, and runs directly through the mayor's house. With their home behind them and only the great unknown ahead of them, the game prepares for their next adventure, whatever may await them. Hopping off the train, John, Jasper, and Sam arrive in White Whale Bay Station near Greenberg. Wandering through the forest nearby, John, Jasper, and Sam meet Uva, and the best John in the game, John the dog, meaning that our John has officially been bumped down to number 2. She offers to take them back to the town, knowing that they're probably tough on their luck as they just got off of Charon. The town of Greenberg is a nice, quaint village with a lot of friendly faces. There's a guy who lives in a boat, there's a funny scarecrow, there's a mayor who looks like a catfish. John and Sam are then set up in an old cabin for the night, with Jasper staying in the main village. The next day, Uva comes to John's cabin and asks him to help corral the bloom pigs, which are these weird, angry birds-looking pig things. After helping Uva with her problem, John heads back to bed for the day. On his way back to bed, Uva finds John and flirts with him. Uva was given some bad, very dated advice from the village elders, but it's overall a very cute scene. It really makes you wonder if John can really have a happy ending after Pot Croc Isle. I mean, you want him and Uva to end up happy, even if it's a little awkward and Jasper has to come in and save it. But in the end, Uva confesses her real feelings to John, saying that she loves him. The day after, John and Sam are woken up by Uva, who announces that all the bloom pigs have somehow gotten out. The village suspects that they might have found their way into the neighboring forest, and Uva gives John her shotgun for safety. Now, the shotgun is your first ranged weapon, but it can barely be qualified as that. It's still a fun mix-up and completely shreds any boss in the game, but you should watch your ammo, especially later on when you might need it for puzzles. Moving into the dungeon proper, you're greeted with a short introductory segment that introduces you to raft physics. Now there are these bumpers that you have to hit with a fully charged attack while on the raft to make them move. A lot of this area is built primarily on these raft puzzles, and for the most part they're pretty good. The dungeon itself doesn't have much combat challenge, but that's not really the point given as these raft puzzles will come back later. It's mainly just an introduction for people who might not understand how they work at first. Reaching the end of the forest, Sam is able to find the runaway bloom pig and convince him not to do that anymore. I guess Sam can talk to animals now? However, right as they get the rogue bloom pig to leave, John and Sam are attacked by the forest robot. Now, the forest robot is maybe technically a mini-boss, but he's honestly one of the better bosses the game has to offer. He doesn't bring up any really new or interesting mechanics, but he's a solid test of your combat skill. You can shred him pretty quickly with the shotgun, but it's mainly about spacing and keeping your distance when he goes for attacks.
Most of all, fuck you!
Behind the robot, John and Sam find an ancient lab called a human factory. In this lab, Sam's doppelganger talks to her once more. Sam, being naive, invites the doppelganger to tomorrow's Harvest Festival, and with a smirk on her face, the doppelganger says that she will indeed join in on the harvest before activating the factory. John and Sam return to the village as heroes for the pre-Harvest Festival. This town really likes festivals. Before they turn in for the night, they eat some food, have some laughs, and take a cute photo with everyone. During the night, the town is completely destroyed by miasma. This is our first glimpse at one of the game's main antagonistic forces, and it's fucking terrifying. The fact that it looks so unworldly by blending 3D animation with a mainly 2D game really sells how out of this world it is. Like it doesn't even belong here to begin with. Back at the cabin, John and Sam are woken up by a young woman with a sword. She tells her that it's too late for the town, but that she can try to guide them to safety. Keep this character in mind, we'll see a lot more of her later. The presence of the miasma activates Sam's latent psionic powers even further, unlocking a screen-wide stun and removing her memories of Greenberg in process. Fleeing from the miasma, John carries Sam on his shoulders, with her psionic abilities going off every few seconds to help guide him through. After a very tense escape sequence where John and Sam are almost swallowed by the miasma, they make it to the train station, along with Jasper. At the train station, Jasper calls himself a coward for not saving anyone in the village, and insinuates that he should have been the one who died there too, instead of the village folk. He laments not being able to do anything, and wishes that he was stronger so that he could help them escape from the miasma. Regardless of their current feelings, the crew only has one more option: boarding Charon once again. Fleeing from their newfound home mere days after arriving, the crew wonders what's ahead of them. They wonder if the miasma will catch up to the train, and if it will keep following them wherever they go. The group is woken up by an intruder alarm sounding on the train. Investigating this, the group finds William, a traveling merchant from Podcroc Isle, and his robotic companion Daniel, who he modeled after his son. William denies even knowing about Podcroc Isle, however, Daniel gives us some hints that prove that he's from there. The train stops at the next stop, and the group arrives in New Dam City. Now, New Dam City is where the bulk of the game takes place, and it's gorgeous to look at. A giant multicultural city built onto a hydroelectric dam. There's signs in Japanese and Chinese, and a lot of the Eastern Asian culture is very well represented here. It just sucks that this is probably the most use I will ever get out of my 12 years of practicing Chinese. Going further into the city, John and Sam find a weird guy dressed as a billboard. This guy serves up all sorts of job listings, and one of them asks for 2 lab assistants. Needing a job and a place to stay, John and Sam go to apply. Arriving at the job site, John and Sam are introduced to Princess Alva, the scientist princess of New Dam City, and her girlfriend Isabel, who's the woman who saved John and Sam back in Greenberg. They take John and Sam on as assistants and give them a place to stay. The duo's first task is to find a slime-breathing furnace for the princess, who explains that this is all part of her plan to stop miasma. Along the way, they meet the best character in the game, Foreman Monk, who asks them to clear the nearby subway station so that it can be repaired. Now this is where the Old Town dungeon begins, and it's fine. It's a pretty solid dungeon, with puzzles mostly revolving around clearing plants that block the way. This can either be done by breaking these bulbs or clearing them manually with fire. The enemies here can be pretty tough if you don't use your shotgun ammo wisely, so make sure to do that. Venturing further into Old Town, John and Sam meet the Sonic Punk, a flying robot that can refill your ammo and bombs, and crafts a new weapon for John, the Scepter of Flame. And no, it's not just a flamethrower, it's the Scepter of Flame. Come on, get it right. Now, the Scepter of Flame is kinda terrible. Its damage output is super shitty, and its only real use is for puzzles. However, if you're some sort of moron who's decided to waste all your upgrade materials on this useless weapon, you are rewarded with an even worse version of the weapon that consumes more ammo. So yeah, only use this on puzzles, it's not really useful for anything else. Venturing further into Old Town, John and Sam find another human factory similar to the one that was near Greenberg. Sam's alternate self splits off again and activates the factory. John and Sam then have to fight another mini-boss, the robot. Now, this robot is different from the one in the forest in many ways. It has a different design, different attack patterns, and unlike the one in the forest, it's not fun. The robot is largely just an HP check. If you have enough healing items, you win. If you don't, you lose. Just keep blasting with the shotgun until it dies. It's not a tough fight, it's just a resource check. John, Sam, and the Sonic Punk are able to find this slime-breathing furnace and return home. On the way back to the lab, we see our first appearance of Solomon, a major villain in this game. Solomon is a vaguely psychic kid who calls himself a destroyer, and it seems he wants to spread miasma into New Dam City. His reasons for wanting this aren't immediately clear, and you'll have to wait till a bit later in the game for his motivations to be fully fleshed out.
I'm telling you now, I have plans that I cannot share with you right now because the haters will sabotage me.
John and Sam make their way back to the lab, rooming with Alva and Isabel. Isabel talks to John about what they went through in Greenberg, showing sympathy and wishing that she could have done more to help, but quickly changes the topic when she finds out that Sam's memory was damaged in the attack. John then uses his chef skills to cook a home-cooked meal for the 4 of them. Everyone is laughing and enjoying themselves, and it seems like things are looking up for once. The next day, Sam gets up early to explore the city. Going upward, she's able to find her way to the Coin Palace. The Coin Palace is a large gambling hall with many slot machines and the average run of sleazy patrons. Using Daniel's lucky coin that she got back in Podcroc, she's able to win an immense amount of money at a rigged slot machine. Goons then take Sam to the upper level and force John to meet with the city's crime boss, Lee. Lee then offers them 3 chances to make a meal that impresses him, and if they can have anything they want. Alva then comes in, revealing that she knew Lee from her childhood. She chastises him for smoking and refers to him jokingly as Lily. She tells John and Sam that Lee adores a fruit called the Glazzyberry, and that's what they need to find to impress him. After searching through the forest near Old Town, John and Sam do end up finding the berry, but give it to William and Daniel under the false pretense of William being deadly sick. John, Sam, and Alva prepare a last-minute dish with ghost pepper jam instead of Glazzyberry jam like they're on an episode of Hot Ones. Lee, of course, does not like this, and now they only have 2 chances left. John and Sam try to get King Crab for a crab pot. They end up convincing some of Mung's former employees to get it for them, but are forced to help Jasper's circus troupe get it together and end up burning the crab. Oh yeah, Jasper has this little sub-story with him starting his own circus troupe or joining a circus troupe, but it doesn't really matter much, or amount to really anything, so just pretend it was there the whole time. Lee, walking into Alva and Isabel's apartment, finds the burnt king crab and, of course, doesn't like it. This man's such a fucking picky eater, Jesus Christ. John and Sam now only have one chance left. The next day, John and Sam wake up to a surprise. Jasper's circus troupe, William, Daniel, and everyone else that they've helped around the city has gathered nice ingredients for them in the hope to get the advantage on Lee. Alva, however, says it's missing the wow factor necessary. William then informs the group of the Golden Valley Snapper, a well-renowned fish found in the Quake Valley, a large landfill that is plagued with earthquakes, much like the state I live in. They first need to find a fish called the Tembler fish, the only fish that is able to catch this Golden Valley Snapper. John and Sam then depart to Quake Valley with William and Daniel to catch this fish. This is the start of the Quake Valley dungeon, which is relatively short but is a lot more combat focused than the other ones. I think that's a good change of pace, relying less on the puzzles, which admittedly can be pretty simple, and more on a solid combat system. Nearing the end of the valley, Sam hops in an old jeep and John follows her, but suddenly the jeep goes flying down the river. John has to then attempt to steer the jeep into an acceptable position before almost crashing into William and Daniel. Daniel, using his robotic strength, is able to stop the jeep and informs them that they're fucking idiots. This isn't a jeep, it's a T-3080 Tomato mini pickup, come on, get it right. Ever so coincidentally, the next room over is where the Tembler fish makes its nest, and this is where we begin the Tembler boss battle. Now, the Tembler fish is an alright boss, it's decently fun, but for me, a lot of it was figuring out how to actually damage the thing. Once you know what to do, you can easily kill it with about 8 shotgun shells. It's really not that hard, but then again, most bosses in here aren't. Bringing the Tembler to William, William is able to get the golden snapper out of the fish's stomach and takes the Tembler slime to make perfume in an attempt to get rich. Returning home, John cooks up the fish alongside all the other dishes. Upon tasting it, Lee admits defeat and says that the meal tastes a lot like friendship. For their prize from Lee's bet, Sam asks that Lee eats dinner with John, her, Alva, and Isabel every night, which is a bit of a weird thing to request of a mob boss. Lee then laughs, saying that although they are odd, he does enjoy their company. Lee then surprises John with an upgraded pan, one more befitting of a chef of his caliber. This is the pan's first damage increase and is much needed, as around this time in the game, the pan very much feels like it's not dealing very much damage. John, Sam, Alva, and Isabel then head to the local hot springs to celebrate their victory. John and Sam immerse themselves more and more in the local culture, and New Dam City truly starts to feel like home. Putting an end to the night, the group heads home, ready for what the next day has in store for them. John dreams about his time back in Greenberg. Walking through a shadowy visage of the town, he comes face to face with Uva and is able to have one last conversation with her. Uva reassures John that it's not his fault, and John wakes up. The miasma has now started spreading into New Dam City. It's up to the group, Isabel, Alva, and Lee to start the Wind God Buddha fan, a giant turbine supposedly capable of blowing away the miasma. Making their way to a hidden control room under the shrine, John and Sam get instructions on what to do next. Tasked with rescuing the townsfolk, John and Sam depart, rescuing Mung's men and also Jasper along the way. While doing this, they meet Solomon, performing some sort of ritual to call forth the miasma, but is quickly stopped by Sam, who turns off his music. Who knew that psychic powers were tied to what you have in your playlist? In the control room, Alva is finally able to activate the fan, and the miasma is blown away, at least for now. A sigh of relief washes over the city, as people can now resume their normal lives, albeit with the looming threat of miasma. Isabel and Alva decide to be safe and stay in the control room to make sure that the miasma does not return. Taking a small break from manning the control room, Isabel and Alva go out drinking. Alva tells Isabel that she's always afraid, especially of what would have happened if the fan didn't work. Isabel reassures her that she doesn't have to worry, because she will always be there to protect her, no matter what happens. She also tells her to not act too reckless or impulsive, and that she will always love her. Alva then falls asleep at the bar with her head resting on her girlfriend's shoulder. The next day, Alva and Isabel send the Sonic Punk, which ended up being a drone that Alva was controlling the whole time, to request John and Sam to bring them some curry as they keep watch from Miasma. The main lift under the shrine has been broken from the struts, so they will need to enter through a maintenance tunnel. Alva also equips John with the Floater Bomb, our first bomb upgrade in the game. Like normal bombs, it's not useful in combat, being used primarily only for puzzles. However, there's a good few puzzles that require its usage. This game really avoids falling into the one-and-done issue with gimmicks, as tools you get early on in the game are still used until late game. As John and Sam explore the maintenance tunnel, they make their way to the control room. However, along the way, an emergency alert is sent out, signaling that Miasma has returned. At this point, John and Sam have to navigate their way through the dam, and this is the next dungeon. The puzzles in combat are very easy, with most of them revolving primarily around raising or lowering water. Some of these were so easy that I literally head-slammed into every lever and still managed to solve them. Overall, still pretty fun. Combat's good at least. Back in the control room, Alva is able to hear a disturbance from the turbine itself. Ignoring Isabel's advice to be cautious, a concerned Alva goes to investigate. John and Sam finally make their way to the control room. Following Alva's path, they see Solomon standing on the reactor. Solomon then reveals that Sam looks the same as someone named Mother, which presumably gives us a name to Sam's alternate self. He then swan dives off the ledge before getting into his first mech, Fists of Courage. Now this boss fight is one of the best in the game. The robot has an almost punch-out-like moveset consisting of a left punch, a right punch, and a defensive block. Using Sam's psionic abilities, you have to push the robot off. This fight has a good mix of John and Sam both contributing, with Sam stunning the robot and John going into DPS. After Solomon's mech is finally defeated, you're able to get the Key of Courage from the robot's rubble. The fan starts once more, blowing away Miasma, but Alva is nowhere to be seen. Later on, John and Sam wait anxiously in the control room, before seeing Isabel carry out a gravely injured Alva and walk away. John finds himself in another dream sequence, this one a lot less pleasant than the one the night before. John is back in Pockrock Isle and has to go into work for the day. Upon arriving at work, he is mocked by his coworkers for being poor. This gives us a bit more insight into how John was treated by the community. While they all wanted him around to help and to clear things up, they truthfully didn't care how he felt. They constantly mocked him for taking in Sam and for his lack of money. Back in the real world, we cut to Isabel interrogating Solomon. Solomon says that he was only able to harm Alva under Mother's direction, and that Sam is Mother. He implies that Mother may not have all her memories of Esther City, a city stuck in time full of genius scientists. Not interested in what he has to say, Isabel leaves. Solomon, noticing a distinct smell in Isabel, asks where she came from, and Isabel says that she was never truly born.
Maybe I am a demon.
Back in the city, Leah's closed off the Dragon Market and, by extension, the entrance to the slums due to a monster infestation, leaving many citizens trapped inside. John, arriving at the scene, is tasked to take down the monsters in the market. While this is happening, Isabel approaches the sleeping Sam with her sword drawn, pressured to kill her by Mother, who says that killing Sam is the only way to avenge Alva. Isabel hesitates, and without the resolve to kill Sam, she instead vows to take Alva towards Esther City, a genius city where no one dies, in hopes to revive her. A now awake and unthreatened Sam goes to join John in the market, where Mung asks him to rescue some of his former employees from the monsters in Lowtown, the slums of the city. Now, this is technically a dungeon, but it barely feels like it. Lowtown is extremely short, with no real gimmicks, mainly just being a combat check. However, it's a good distraction from all the story that's been going on. Story cutscenes in this game can last minutes, with the longest ones being as long as 10 or 20. While I personally enjoy this, I feel a lot of players will need a break to actually play the game before watching more story. With the way cleared by John and Sam, Mung is able to reunite with his former employees. He shares a heartfelt moment about how they always care about each other and rehires them on the spot. Sam, distracted by Mother, wanders off to the side. Mother tells Sam to forget about mankind and embrace her purpose as something beyond the cycle of life and death. Mother tells Sam that she used to rule over the world, which we now know is called Eastward.
He said it! He said it!
Before a group of old men were finally able to put a stop to her. After some expected resistance, Mother reminds Sam of Greenberg, restoring her memory and telling her that the miasma will soon swallow all that she holds dear. In a show of defiance, Sam harnesses her power against Mother, unlocking the ability to charge her attacks during gameplay. Mother then responds by sending a miasma-infected monster to attack her. Now, the infected behemoth is a very fun boss. It's a good timing-based challenge that requires you to position well with Sam, as John is not present. However, at first, I did not know that you unlocked the ability to fully charge your attacks. This led to me getting my first game over. If you're concerned about this game's difficulty, we are about halfway through the game and I have just now gotten game over for the first time. The game itself is not difficult, but we'll talk more about some difficulty spikes later. Defeating the monster, Sam blacks out, and is thankfully rescued by John, who takes her back home to Alva and Isabel's lab. Back home, the duo find Lee searching for Isabel. It's here that Lee reveals that Alva was his sister, and that he, Alva, and Isabel grew up close together. He tells the story of how Isabel was brought home, presumably from one of the human factories, to defend Alva. On her first day, she cut the family dog in half. She saw it as a threat to Alva as it approached too quickly, and ever since then the two have acted as each other's anchors. Alva's impulsiveness is kept in check by Isabel, and Isabel's violent determination is kept in check by Alva. Lee then says he made two promises. The first was to protect Alva, and the second was to protect his city. And while he may have failed the first, he won't let himself fail the second. Sam, deducting that Isabel is headed to Esther City, vows to find Isabel and Alva, and to stop Mother from spreading miasma to the rest of the world. With no real way to leave the city after Lee has closed off much of it, John and Sam meet up with William and Daniel. William reveals his custom rail car that he has been traveling on, the Iron Carbine. The four of them vow to head to Esther City together, as William also has unfinished business there. On their way out, John and Sam see everyone that they've met in the city waiting for them. This is the final goodbye for a good chunk of characters. Jasper chooses to stay in the city with the troop, and everyone else can't come along on this adventure. They eagerly await John and Sam's return, and talk about the fun they'll have when they come back. Waiting at the train station, Lee tries to convince the duo to stay one last time. After this, he shares his final words with them, telling them that they have a special type of strength that he couldn't even dream of, and even though the journey will be hard, he has faith that they can do it together. With this, John, Sam, William, and Daniel board the Iron Carbine, and depart on their way off to Esther City. While aboard the Iron Carbine on the way to Esther City, William talks to Sam and admits that he's also never been to Esther City. Later at night, while Daniel and Sam sleep, John and William have a heart-to-heart. William now admits that he left Potcrock Isle a long time ago, and tries to guess who Sam's mother is from the village. But in the end, he decides it doesn't matter and that every adult has a reason for doing the things they do. William asks John about human Daniel, and laments that he had to leave him. He says that a strong-willed boy like that would have been better off if he wasn't his son. The next day, the group passes through a giant patch of large mushrooms, before heading into some dense fog. While in the fog, their visibility is reduced to near nothingness. Suddenly, from behind them, another train car starts approaching. It looks eerily similar to their own in every aspect, and despite their best efforts, the train cart catches up with them and seemingly sends them back to right before they enter the fog. After passing through the mushrooms in the fog again, William proposes that they are in a time loop, and says that they have to use everything at their disposal to escape. The scene then cuts and we are now with Isabel and Alva. They also appear to be stuck in the time loop, and here we get reassurance that Alva is alive, if just barely. Isabel takes in her surroundings and tries to look for a way out of the fog. Alva, using what little life she has, attempts to move, but Isabel reassures her that everything will be better upon reaching Esther City. Back with the main group, William instructs Daniel to use a secret tool to increase their speed in the next loop. Daniel warns that this tool is extremely unsafe, but William sees it as the only option left. Passing the mushrooms and entering the fog again, the phantom cart chases the group. Daniel activates a secret tool, which is revealed to be a high-density fuel that William has designed, and the group just barely outruns the phantom cart. However, in the commotion, the iron carbine crashes into another train. Upon investigating, the group finds themselves in Monkhollywood, a train inhabited by highly intelligent monkeys that make films. Exploring the train a bit, John and Sam talk to Padrino, the producer for Monkhollywood Pictures. He tells them to find the director and, by extension, a rocket that could bypass the time loop. Going up to the second floor of the train to see the director, you step into a film set. Everything in this area is a reference to some famous movie. I mean, even the chapter's name is a reference to the film by famous foot fetishist and sometimes director Quentin Tarantino. The director, a monkey named Favoloso, is not content with his actor's performances, but instantly falls in love with John's sad, middle-aged self before he even says a word, just like all of us did when we first saw him. He immediately casts him in his next film, and shooting begins immediately after. John then stars in a nonsensical action movie, where he has to fight frogs, monsters, robots, women, and after the director calls a wrap on shooting, he is sent to the props department. In the props department, the group meets back up with William and Daniel rejoining the crew. William and John also meet a sex robot which is there for some reason. In the props department, it's revealed that the rocket is made out of nothing but cardboard and won't be able to take the group off the train. At the front of the train, a now teenage Solomon monitors the whole facility. He receives another vision of Mother telling him to open the factory inside the train and instructs him to capture Sam. She warns of dire consequences if he doesn't follow her advice, so he reprograms the Monkey Mother robot and sends his army after John and Sam. A robo-monkey army captures the group and takes all of John's weapons. With the help of William and all the monkeys in the studio, they are able to escape and head for the front of the train to stop Solomon. Favoloso also gives John a new weapon, the cog shooter. Now, the cog shooter is the last weapon John gets, and just like every weapon past the shotgun, it's not really that useful. Its damage is pitiful, and the range isn't really much of a reason to use it over the shotgun. However, a few puzzles use it, and you can now break boxes from afar, something that will be used later on for a few puzzles with Sam. Making their way to the front of the train, John and Sam meet with Solomon, who once again calls Sam Mother and laughs that after all these calamities, she still doesn't remember who she is. He then boards his mini-train, and John and Sam have to fight him again. Now, this boss fight's very fun. The minions he summons don't really distract from the fight, and his attacks are pretty easily telegraphed. Beating up the train enough gives you the opportunity to attack him directly, and once you can do that, you can easily melt him with the shotgun. After being defeated, Solomon reveals that Isabel did in fact pass through the train, but it was a long time ago and she's already long gone. Solomon is then quickly imprisoned in the back of the train, where he then reveals that Isabel's rocket is in his panzer. Looking for the remote to activate the rocket, John, Sam, William, and Daniel are forced to participate in a quiz show left by Solomon. In this quiz show, he reveals his objective to use miasma to force mankind to evolve into a more advanced form. After a clearly rigged quiz show, the rocket is revealed to the group. William and Daniel attach the rocket to the iron carbine, and the group now has a way to escape the fog. However, before they leave, they say one last goodbye to all the newly freed monkeys. The monkeys give a sad goodbye to the crew, and promise to make a movie about the group's escapades on the train. Boarding the iron carbine once more, the group runs from the phantom cart. The cooling system breaks down under the stress of the new engine. However, Sam is able to use William's own lucky coin to stabilize the cooling system, and the group barely pulls off their escape. Coming out of the fog, the group pulls into Esther City, a whole town frozen in an eternal winter, where time doesn't seem to flow. John, Sam, William, and Daniel wonder if what they seek is in the city, or if this whole trip was for naught. After stepping out their cars, the group finds the train station completely empty, which is strange for a city of this size. Looking around, John and Sam are quickly sucked into a time loop, and suddenly find themselves at the funeral of Professor Solomon. Now, the entirety of this next chapter takes place in a time loop, so if things sound repetitive or confusing, I promise I'm trying my best. It's a little hard to explain what's going on here sometimes, and the game really does a better job explaining it than I ever could. After Professor Solomon's funeral on the Isle of Time, John and Sam make their way back to the mainland with the help of Captain Pam and the Lumpy Pirates.
Can we get much higher? So high.
As payment for the ride back to the mainland, John and Sam are tasked to deliver 3 packages. This sends John and Sam all over Esther City, a classic American-Canadian looking city with a few notable restaurants, hotels, and what appears to be a booming music scene. During these deliveries, John and Sam meet back up with William and Daniel. They catch Daniel leaving a robotics shop right after he's had a new chip installed. However, it appears this chip changed his entire personality, and considerably for the worse. After completing their deliveries, John and Sam go back to Pam, who gives them one last letter to deliver to a man named Ivan. However, the time loop restarts before they can reach him. Repeating the same exact events over again, Sam then tries to warn William about the chip, but he goes through with the operation anyway. After the operation goes wrong, the employee at the robotic shop tells Sam that they would need an emotion chip from Floyd, Solomon's robot who they met earlier, to fix him. The time loop then resets again. Back at the funeral, John and Sam get the emotion chip from Floyd before heading back to the robotics worker. Sam gives her the emotion chip and the operation begins. However, Daniel's core is far too powerful to handle the robotics chip, and the operation has to be pushed back to a different date and location. Completing the deliveries again, the time loop is seemingly extended, and John and Sam now have time to deliver the final letter for Pam. This letter is going to a man named Ivan in the town's hotel. At the door, John and Sam are rejected by Ivan until they mention Isabel. Ivan apparently also knows Isabel, and proposes that she's locked in the time field along with all of them. Just as the time loop resets, Ivan tells John and Sam to look for Tomas on the Isle of Time, as he may know more about Isabel. Resetting the time loop, John and Sam explore the Island of Time to look for Tomas. Now, the Island of Time is another short, gimmickless dungeon that doesn't really do anything besides a few challenging combat encounters. Meeting Tomas, he seems to recognize Sam, and wants her to talk about anything more so that he can simply hear her voice again. He then says that we, whoever we is, might be able to help John and Sam on the mainland, and gives John the remote bomb. Now again, trying to use this in combat isn't going to prove useful, but it's very valuable for puzzles, allowing you to activate a gate from across a room. Heading on the boat back to the mainland, Tomas then asks you to gather Ivan, Frank, and Guy for him. In the train graveyard, Frank, this big Frankenstein-looking dude, calls Sam Mother. This seems to really annoy Sam, as at this point this is about the 3rd person who's confused her with Mother. Sam leaves in a fit of rage to find Tomas at the Eternal Tower.
He did the same joke about 3 times already. I don't think it's funny anymore.
In front of the Eternal Tower, Solomon's former lab, Pam, Tomas, Ivan, Guy, and Frank are all gathered. They introduce themselves as the Rocket Knight Legion, a name taken from Earthborn, which at this point we found out Guy made. Pam takes the role of knight, Ivan is the monk, Guy is the hunter, Tomas is the mage, and Franklin acts as the priest. Frank then opens his head to reveal the Sonic Punk, who's been out of commission since entering Esther City. Oh yeah, I forgot that this was even a gameplay mechanic to stop you getting stuck. I guess there's no real puzzles in this area. Guy repaired and upgraded Sonic Punk, giving it the capability to search through time and space, allowing the group to effectively track Isabel. Using this new technology, the group is able to tell that Isabel went into the Eternal Tower. Tracking Isabel throughout time, she leads them to Solomon's Flame of Time, the only thing in the world that can open the Eternal Tower. To get it though, they must first enter his hideout on the Isle of Time. Isabel has a little bit more character development and it's revealed that Solomon never died. As the time loop approaches, the Rocket Knight Legion says that they may forget what happened today because of the time loop, but their hearts will always remember. Now, going into Solomon's grave, this is another super short dungeon. This entire area is essentially 3 short dungeons that make up one larger chapter. At the end of this dungeon, John and Sam are able to get the Flame of Time and make their way back to the Eternal Tower. Making their way back to the Eternal Tower, the rest of the Rocket Knight Legion is filled in by Tomas on what happened, as he seems to be the only one outside the time loop. The group tries to use the Flame of Time to enter, but needs a large energy source to open the door. Thinking quickly, Guy then calls over William and Daniel, and says that they can complete Daniel's operation and open the door at the same time. Using the excess power in Daniel's core, the operation is a success and the door is opened. However, Daniel was left very weak, and along with William, they return to the Iron Carbine. John and Sam then enter the Eternal Tower. Now, the Eternal Tower is arguably the best dungeon in the game. There are moving platform puzzles that require you to quickly swap between John and Sam, time trial rooms that require you to reach the end and destroy a crystal before a time loop resets you, and a new use for the cog launcher, breaking faraway boxes so that you can reach platforms as Sam. Reaching the top of the tower, John and Sam are able to dispel the time field once and for all. This causes the false version of the Eternal Tower to disappear, and the ravages of time affect Esther City all at once. The Rocket Knight Legion, now fading into the stream of time, give their final goodbyes before disappearing. Before John and Sam go in, Guy upgrades John's pan one last time and wishes them luck. And in my 17 hours of recorded footage, you will never guess the 15-minute chunk that disappeared. As John and Sam make their way up the real Eternal Tower, they meet a now elderly Solomon. Solomon mocks the now dead Rocket Knight Legion. He claims to be a hero who saved Esther City from miasma, with Sam refuting that the city was nothing but an illusion. Solomon quickly retorts by saying that everything is an illusion, and that life and death is as fickle as leaves in the wind. But Sam, being an immortal being, can go beyond that and break the cycle. Solomon then mounts into the Eye of Wisdom, his final robot, and fights John and Sam one last time. Now, the Eye of Wisdom is probably the best fight in the game, requiring you to use John and Sam equally to break icicles and stun the robot. This gives John the opportunity to damage it while it's lying on the ground. It creates this fun back and forth of trying to look for an opportunity to damage it while breaking icicles with John. After defeating Solomon, John and Sam make their way back to the train station. On the way there, Sam reaffirms to herself and to John that they're not illusions, and that their journey really does matter. Back at the train station, William and Daniel are talking about the future, with William wanting to let Daniel finally visit Pogrock Isle. William says he's had enough adventure for a while, and wants to go home, at least for a little bit. They are then joined by John and Sam. A still alive Solomon then makes one final push to kill the group by firing an energy blast. Daniel is able to absorb the blast, however, is completely destroyed in the process. In the fit of anger, Sam, now controlled by Mother, erases Solomon from existence and summons the train Charon to the station. Sam leaves the station on Charon as William mourns Daniel. William talks to John, saying that while he may have made some bad decisions, John still has time to get his daughter back, and hands him over the lucky coin. He then tells John to take the Iron Carbine and chase after Sam. Hopping on the Iron Carbine, we enter the climax of the game, with John hoping to save his daughter from the ancient evil that is Mother. Crashing headfirst into Charon, John finds himself in the belly of the beast. The interior of the train is a strange combination of flesh and mechanics. The aesthetics of this area have what I can only describe as a combination of H.R. Geiger's Alien work and the aesthetics of The Shining. Moving into the dungeon proper, it's a very solid final dungeon. The main gimmick here is the draggable objects, which you have to move within a time frame or else they despawn. Going further in, there's some light combat encounters before you are faced with the god-awful mini-bosses. I don't know if this is just me being bad at the game or not prepared enough, but these things took forever to kill and were just an HP sponge. Half of their attacks felt undodgeable, and the half that didn't just felt unfun to fight against. Progressing further into Charon, John finds the Charon Museum, an archive of what the train is and its true purpose. Here we are introduced to the Egg of Life, an artificial incubator that can grow perfect artificial life. This life can be customized down to the genome and is the basis for the human factories we see throughout the game. From the Egg of Life was born a being known as Mother. Mother was created to act as humanity's backup plan in the face of miasma. Holding immense power, she was regarded as the ultimate form of life, as even a small fragment of her holds power greater than you or I could ever think of. Together, Mother, Charon, and the Egg of Life are the three elements to restore civilization and perfect human evolution. The Egg of Life creates new humans, while Mother powers and oversees them, and Charon can destroy any life deemed imperfect.
Ouroboros will be released into the atmosphere, ensuring complete global saturation.
Running out of the museum, John chases a shadow of Sam. John is quickly enveloped in a dream where he has to chase Sam through the places they went on their journey. Charon, or Mother, as the two have now become near inseparable at this point, senses John as an intruder and morphs the environment around him, sending Miasma to chase him through its halls. We see now that Sam has been imprisoned by Mother. Mother tells Sam that humans aren't worth caring for, and that the world has to be cleansed. Angered at Sam's insolence, Mother tells them that she's prepared a special game for them if they will not listen. John now wakes up in a dark hallway and walks down it to find Isabel. Next to Isabel lies Alva in an Egg of Life. Isabel then shares her love for Alva, and mentions how she envied John's freedom to go wherever and do whatever he wanted, unbound by obligation. Isabel has used Charon to create an army of Alvas, ones that can live out her dreams unburdened by their previous life, all under Isabel's watchful eye. She claims that Miasma will soon claim all of humanity, and that Alva will be the one to inherit the new world. Drawing her weapon, she says that she will not let John get in the way of her plans, and prepares to fight. Now this boss fight is very good, and a complete departure from the other ones we've seen in the game so far. The only button you need to hit this entire fight is the attack button, but it's all about reaction and memorization. It's decently fun once you get it down. However, for someone like me who has the reaction time of a snail and the memorization of a bonobo, this fight was a little difficult, leading to my second, third, fourth, and fifth game overs. After Isabel is defeated, she is visited by the spirit of Alva, who tells her that she needs to come to terms with her death. Isabel says that it wasn't her time to die, and Alva refutes that no one ever truly knows their time to die. With this, Alva gives her final tearful goodbyes to Isabel and passes on to the afterlife. John and Sam are reunited and head on to face Mother, Isabel staying behind, mourning in the human factory. Before going in to fight Mother, Sam asks to talk to John, and tells him that no matter what happens, she wants him to remember her as Sam, not as Mother. Whether Sam is a fragment of Mother or something else entirely, Sam only wants John to remember Sam for Sam. Heading into the final battle, John and Sam come face to face with Charon and Mother, taking the form of a three-headed monster. Now, as the final boss of this game, Charon is a very fun challenge. He uses all the skills you've learned up until this point, like charging attacks and switching between characters on the fly. After fighting the monster and weakening it substantially, Sam infuses her spirit into John's pan, giving him the weapon necessary to kill Charon once and for all. Plunging into the darkness below, John comes face to face with Charon one more time, and with one final swing of his pan, the evil is slain once and for all. With Charon dead, all that's left is Mother. Sam confronts Mother one last time, who tries to show her the evils and shortcomings of the world. Mother, a being originally created to guide humanity's evolution, now wants only to end the human race, as she views them unfit to rule the world. Rejecting Mother's ideology, Sam, in one final act of heroism, destroys herself to destroy Mother once and for all. Awakening in the abyss below, John catches Sam as she falls, her body disintegrating into the universe. Mother asks Sam why she didn't say goodbye to John one last time, to which Sam says that John knows that they'll meet again, somehow, somewhere, someday. Cutting forward substantially into the future, we now see a teenage Sam waiting near a train for New Dam City. At the train station, she stumbles across an older John waiting there too. Sam, with no memory of their past lives together, reintroduces herself to John, who understandably acts shocked upon seeing his daughter again. Even though the two of them are just strangers now, they have the opportunity to make up for lost time, and get to know each other all over again. The camera pans up as the title card is shown one last time, finally putting an end to Eastward. We cut back to New Dam City, with William speaking to both human and robot Daniel. With one last flip of his lucky coin, William finally becomes the father that he wishes he could have been for Daniel, as well as not forgetting his new robot son. Eastward's story deals with two main themes: how we deal with loss, and how we deal with legacy. And all throughout the game, you can see these themes in play. First, let's talk about loss. Now, this is a theme that the game hammers in very hard. We see it in characters like John, who need to learn how to accept loss. And while it does take some time, eventually it shows that everyone can do it. John blamed himself for what happened at Greenberg and couldn't come to accept it at first. However, continuing on through the journey, he knew that there was nothing he could do, and that he still had those memories of Greenberg in his heart, even if the town itself is gone. We can see a similar situation mirrored here with Sam's sacrifice. Even though Sam dies in John's arms, he knows that even if he's lost her, she's never truly gone, even if it's just memories. Isabel, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. Someone who couldn't deal with the death of a loved one and let it consume her, making her do horrible things in a futile attempt to get back what she's lost. And deep down, Isabel knows this. When Alva's ghost confronts her, even Isabel seems to acknowledge that this plan was doomed from the start. This leaves Isabel with two options. She either has to get past her trauma, or she won't ever truly be able to live at all. At the end of the game, Isabel's fate is never explicitly stated, however, there are only two real options. Either A, Isabel was able to get off Charon in time and accept what happened, or B, she was unable to accept what happened and dies when Charon crashes. While the end text scroll does seemingly support Isabel dying more than her living, I think it's good that it's still left up to interpretation. Another very easy to overlook case of dealing with loss is Solomon, albeit in a different way. While there is evidence to support Solomon being an orphan and a point to be made that this could all be him lashing out against a world who's treated him wrong, his main form of loss is internal. Solomon, someone who is an extreme narcissist even at such a young age, is defeated by John and Sam, and seemingly can't handle it. His bio on the official website explicitly states that he needs to be the best and to be the center of attention. In the end, what we have here is a young kid who spent the rest of his life trying to prove that he's better than two people who, in the end, barely even thought of him. Later in life, it's possible that Solomon realized how much of his life he had wasted chasing after people that don't care about him and tried to give his younger self the help he needs. However, being a lifelong narcissist, his younger self obviously rejected this. Now, a small detail I noticed that probably isn't plot relevant is that all three characters that Mother appears to share some notable details. All three of them are emotional, impulsive people who think with their heart before their head. Solomon, Sam, and Isabel are all also shown to be some varying degree of psionic, meaning that maybe Mother can only possess those with psionic abilities, or, I don't know, maybe they just all ate the wrong radioactive goo. The second major point that this game likes to hammer in is memories and legacy. The fridge saves your memories, the first thing you buy in the game is a memory card, Sam loses her memories. It's fair to say that it's a major point of the game. A lot of the game's core conflict comes from a difference in the effect that memories had in the views of different people. How differently they can remember and perceive the same events. For example, while Isabel taking Alva to Esther City seems like a heroic quest to her, to the people of New Dam City, she's a traitorous kidnapper. Solomon sees himself as the hero who saved Esther City, but those who saw through his illusion knew that he was a crazed old lunatic. Who each character is will vary depending on who you ask in the game, and I think this is another point that the game very much wants to reinforce. In the end, Eastward is a simple game done masterfully. A lot of depth and charm clearly went into the world, the characters are engaging, and it's surprisingly deep for such a short game. The gameplay flows between puzzles and combat beautifully, and with this video I hope that I can at least help the game get some of the recognition it deserves. If anything I have said in this video interests you even slightly, please play the game to support the devs. Indie companies like this only really get chances to put out new games if their first ones do well, so we really have to support indie devs who put a lot of time and effort into their games. And who knows, whether they choose to revisit the world or go in a completely different direction with their next game, I think we can expect something great out of Pixel's next game. At least, hopefully something that can measure up to how great Eastward is. Hey, you made it to the end of the video! From the bottom of my heart, sincerely, thank you. This took a long ass time to make, but I loved every second of it, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Before I go, I had a few quick things I wanted to say. Number one, that song that you heard in the outro montage is Dream Stealer by the band Public Circuit. They're a New York-based band, they're incredibly talented. They play live in New York fairly regularly, so if you're there, you should definitely go check them out. I'm going to link all their stuff in the description down below. 2. Upload schedule. My current plan is, because I want to keep making these types of videos, I'm going to make one long-form review, then a second bonus video, and then a third unrelated one. And then the cycle will repeat. And these bonus videos are going to be related to the main review, but maybe just about something that I didn't have time to fit in, or something that just didn't fit with the whole process of the video. This one right now is just going to be a few things that I missed, and then a Q&A. So if you have any questions about Eastward or about yours truly, please feel free to ask them down below. Even if I don't answer it in the video, I'd probably just answer it in the comments. Also going to review the next game that I'm going to be reviewing there. 3. So I'm currently in the process of revamping my Twitch, getting all new channel art and everything updated, and maybe working like a little VTuber model thing. So I want to start streaming there. I can't promise that streams would be consistent, but it would give me something to do when I'm not directly working on a video that could still be productive. My Twitch is just at VonVarley Real, and by the time this video is up, everything should be revamped fully. And that should be it. Once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for caring enough about me or this game or whatever to watch it for over an hour. And until next time, see ya.